Apple is working on the next iPhone SE, and we actually know a great deal about it already. The iPhone SE, or Special Edition, has always served as Apple's most affordable entry point into the ecosystem. Normally, the SE is a pretty bare-bones iPhone with a recycled design featuring older tech with an updated processor, battery, and display here and there. However, this year, some larger changes are scheduled, so let's break down everything we know about the iPhone SE 4, starting with the design. For the past couple of iterations, the iPhone SE has used the same design as the iPhone 6, originally seen back in 2014. And after a decade, Apple is finally expected to kill this design once and for all. The current iPhone SE, the third generation, closely resembles the iPhone 8. It has a 4.7-inch LCD display, it has an aluminum chassis, a home button, Touch ID, and some pretty large bezels. Third generation SE also doesn't have MagSafe, so it can only charge using standard Qi wireless charging. But the iPhone SE 4 is rumored to have a design similar to the 14, ditching that home button and Touch ID in favor of a notch and Face ID. With this, we'll also see upgrades to the display, going from that smaller 4.7-inch display to the larger 6.1-inch display found on the 14. Naturally, the bezels will shrink with that display upgrade too. This makes tons of sense, right? Just like with other versions of this phone, Apple is able to save costs by using designs we've seen before, with components we've seen before, but in a package that can run the latest iOS version. Cool. I'm on board with all of that. But there's actually a little bit of a discrepancy on how the chassis will look, and I'll give my personal opinion here in just a second. According to renderings by John Prosser and Ian Zelbo, the SE4 will have rounded aluminum borders similar to those found on the iPhone XR or the iPhone 11. But this more recent CAD render from 91 Mobiles showed the chassis with more flat edges, more similar to the iPhone 14. For me, the design of the chassis will come down to one thing: whether or not this phone will have 5G. Apple first introduced flat borders on their phones when they added 5G to the iPhone 12 lineup. Purely from a design perspective, I think it was easier for Apple to place the 5mm wave component on a flat edge rather than a curved one. If you ask me, 5G will determine whether or not this device resembles more of an iPhone XR or an iPhone 14. But regardless of which design the SE4 mimics, the phone does appear to be getting bigger. Ross Young reported that this phone might get a 5.6-inch display. And while he's incredibly accurate, I'd still probably bank on a 6.1-inch in the name of reusability, especially with Apple planning to go completely carbon neutral by 2030. So, sorry small phone lovers, this probably means Apple's smallest phone will now have a 6.1-inch display. But on the plus side, a bigger phone also means a bigger battery. We don't have any specifics on the battery yet, but with everything we know so far, I'd expect anything from 2,942 mAh we have on the XR to the 3,279 mAh we see on the 14. Expect pretty good battery life. Another potential upgrade rumored to come to the display is OLED. Every other iPhone in Apple's lineup features an OLED display. Currently, the iPhone SE has an LCD display. This is really more of a toss-up. With Apple trying to keep the phone as budget-friendly as possible, adding an OLED display can tack on some higher costs. That's a rumor that I'd definitely keep my eye on going forward. Now, one of the biggest things that will differentiate the SE4 and the 14 is the SE will keep the single wide-angle lens setup that it's always had. No 0.5 or 2x optical zoom options on this phone. So unfortunately, this probably isn't the phone for recording movies and action shots like on the 15 Pros. But on the plus side, instead of the standard 12-megapixel camera that Apple has had on its phone for ages, the new SE is rumored to have a 48-megapixel camera, like on the 14s. Now, more megapixels are great. Generally speaking, more megapixels mean more bits of binary photo that a camera can capture. That means more detail, sharpness, and quality is going to come out of each shot. But the real magic is in the processing. By now, I know most of the people watching this video have seen how Apple's camera works. But if you haven't, the camera works basically by taking multiple images, selecting the best qualities from each, and then creating a single composite, and that becomes your final picture. iPhones traditionally do this pretty well, and depending on the chip that Apple puts inside the SE this year and the AI enhancements set to come this summer, it could potentially be one of the best cameras in a budget phone. I wouldn't go ditching your iPhone 14 for an SE just yet, but a 4x improvement on the camera is not a bad jump at all. I think all of these design changes are pretty fair, timely, and expected. But I'd say we're pretty much on a seesaw here as far as upgrades go. On one hand, if some of these rumors are true, then we basically get a cheaper iPhone 14 with a single lens setup. Not bad. But if some of the rumors are wrong, say for instance we get a rounded chassis instead of flat, and an LCD screen instead of OLED, and no 5G, then this phone will actually be a lot closer to a XR. We're kind of in a weird spot. If Apple were to offer you the latter version of that deal, the iPhone SE 4 being like a XR, but for the current price of the SE 3, $429, would you buy it? Let me know down in the comments. Those are all the big rumors about the iPhone SE, but I thought I'd mention some things on my personal wish list for this phone. I'm definitely not the target consumer, but as the go-to tech dude for my family, some of my family members are the target customers. So here's what I'd like to see for them. First is a low price. This one feels like a no-brainer, but a budget phone that really isn't budget-friendly kind of defeats the purpose. As I mentioned, the iPhone SE 3 is only $429, and it still beats out the iPhone 13 series that Apple still sells by over $150. If the rumors we just discussed are true, then keeping the price the same at just under $450 would be a game changer for Apple. Not to mention, other competitors in this space cost a $450 starting price. If Apple were to break that $450 threshold, I think they'd start having a problem. Nailing the price is going to be key for those target consumers. Next is MagSafe. This one is going to be a bit controversial, but I actually don't want them to add MagSafe to the iPhone SE 4, and here's why. MagSafe can interfere with medical equipment like pacemakers because the magnets are just so darn strong. Apple even has a disclaimer about this on its website. This is a major health and safety risk to anyone with these medical devices. That means that currently, the iPhone SE is the only phone that those customers can purchase. I think on a base model phone, leaving MagSafe off is not only a smart financial decision, but a more accessible one too. So long as the battery can be fast charged by a wire, I think that's how most people purchasing the SE would want to charge their phone anyways. I'm not knocking MagSafe at all. It's a really useful feature, but if I'm picking heart health customers or MagSafe, I'm sorry Apple, MagSafe's gotta go. Next is storage. More storage on these devices is a must, especially if the rumors of a 48 megapixel camera are true. For the current price of $429, you get 64 gigs of storage. Now, if you have iCloud photos, you can probably get away with that. But if you're anyone else, 64 gigs really doesn't cut it in 2024. I'm picturing my grandmother, who I did in fact buy the iPhone SE 3 for, holding down the shutter button and taking 200 pictures at my cousin's graduation. Another thing that happened. Wondering why she can't download new apps. So yeah, less calls to the family tech enthusiasts, the better we all are. Let's just bump that base storage up to 128 gigs to start. That's where all the other iPhones start anyways. Even on a budget phone, it's just time for that upgrade. And now for my spiciest request, AI enhancements. Hear me out. We don't really know when we're going to see this phone. It could come as soon as this spring, all the way out until next spring. That's spring of 2025. If I'm putting my money on it, I'd say it's definitely closer to 2025 like some of the others have speculated. If that's the case, then that means iOS 18 will be out. For those who don't know, iOS 18 is rumored to be completely injected with new AI features with updates to Siri, the design, and the entire functionality of the OS. All I'm asking is that whatever changes they make to the iOS actually makes it into the budget phone. If Apple Music comes out with an AI DJ to rival Spotify's, then I know that's something me and my grandmother will want to share together. But all jokes aside, the budget phone should totally have all the features that the main flagship wants as far as iOS is concerned. If you want to hear more about iOS 18, I've actually done a full video on it, so either click on that pop-up that shows up on your screen or you can find it in the comments of this video or on my closing screen. But thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Jaiven, and this is JPS TV. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want me to talk about next. But until next time, be safe, be cool, be fresh, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.